Okay, do I need to press my button? All right, good. All right. Welcome, everybody. We're going to call the meeting to order. Had a chance to look at the agenda. Any additions to the agenda this evening? Okay, seeing none. Can I have somebody move the agenda? Moved by Councillor Bork, seconded by Councillor Saulnier. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Any conflict of interest declarations for tonight? Is there anything on the agenda that anybody has a conflict with? Okay, seeing none, and if something comes up along the way, just let us know. We will move on. Next, we have a presentation tonight. So we have Jonathan LeBlanc from the fire chief from the Eelbrook Fire Department who's going to make a presentation for us. Go ahead. Press your button, Jonathan. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so as you're all aware, we've been working on getting a new fire hall for quite some time. We're a lot closer than we ever have been. Through the last few years, there's been a lot of setbacks, but also a lot of forward momentum. Originally, we had planned on having many items in there, like a comfort center, which would be used by the public in times of emergency, a meeting room, which we were going to provide access to the public to, laundry facility for the public during times of drought, as well as showers. And the other thing we had planned on was a fitness center. Funding couldn't be secured for any of that. Through the last couple of years, especially after the start of COVID, we kept reducing our floor plan and the price kept increasing, even with our reductions in floor plan. So we probably made 7 or 8 revisions to that in attempts to get to a point where we could move forward. We now have reached that point. So our mortgage should be secured probably, we expect, by the end of this week or start of next week. And the architects are probably getting down to the last 2 to 3 weeks of prep for the tender package. So we're hoping mid-May we should see a tender package ready to go out. So moving forward, like I say, we have the tender package almost ready. We have the mortgage is almost secured. So once we can get this up and running, we'll now have a safe place to store our trucks. Our new trucks should be ready in the next 2 to 3 weeks. But what it doesn't allow for is additional equipment. You know, things we need to work every day that we should have, which our current hall would not have supported. But doesn't mean we shouldn't have had it all along, right? So, you know, there is a lot of things we still need. There's a lot of other things we're still going to have to take care of ourselves as well on top of all this, you know, office furnishings, tables, chairs for meetings, you know, paper towel holders and garbage cans and you know, whatever it's going to take to furnish the rest of the building. So a lot of the pieces that I'm going to request funding for are heavily involved with safety improvements. So according to NFPA guidelines, our bunker gear storage has to be stored in lockers that meet a certain criteria. And what this does is allows proper ventilation, proper off-gassing for after a fire call, because the off-gassing off our bunker gear is very carcinogenic. So this allows them to properly off-gas, keeps us a little safer. So those lockers are pretty key to that, as opposed to just the old plywood lockers that we all seem to be still using. And now we're learning more and more every day that cancer is now the #1 killer of firefighters, as opposed to heart attacks like it was for years. So I think it's high time that we all adapt and learn from that. So the other thing along that lines is a extractor washer. Some fire departments are running just commercial grade front load washers or regular washing machines. What we've come to discover is that, for one example, was Yarmouth Fire Department was doing that. They took a freshly washed set of bunker gear, put it in their new extractor washer, which would be similar to what a hotel uses. But it is designed to extract all the chemicals and carcinogens and unburnt combustibles from our gear. So that newly washed set of gear they took out of their first washer, they put into their extractor washer, and the water came out black. So it shows that, you have to have the proper equipment to operate safely. So, and then, on top of that, there's a lot of other things we're going to have to change where, we're not going to have a meeting room. Our meetings will likely end up taking place in the apparatus bay. So that means we're going to have our tables and chairs and everything covered. Uncover that, clean it all before use because of all the diesel exhaust, that sits on everything, as well as washing any other contact points within the truck bay. So there's a lot of changes we have to make on our end too to adapt to this, as well as on top of the equipment. So some of the equipment needs we have on top of those are the critical safety concerns, but other equipment we need. Currently throughout the municipality, there's departments in the county, for that matter, there's departments that are switching their breathing air bottles to bottles that are rated for 4,500 PSI. What that does is it allows our firefighters more time inside of a building, and we're better able to work more efficiently with reduced manpower that we always seem to be seeing on calls these days. The problem being is there's no truck-mounted refill system in the county that's able to fill those 4,500-pound bottles. Our new truck will have a 6,000 PSI cascade system on it. So that would allow us the opportunity to go out throughout the municipality to anybody running 4,500-pound bottles and fill them for them. However, there's no compressor within the county that can fill a cascade system to 6,000 PSI. So we're looking to add one at our hall, which again would benefit the municipality as a whole, because we can really increase the efficiency on calls by doing so. So that would be the compressor installed in the 2 cascade bottles that we would use to fill off of. So one of the other things we're looking at is a standby generator to supply emergency power to the hall. That way we can run all this equipment even if there's a prolonged power outage, because let's face it, fires are still going to happen even though the power's out. So if we have those, we can still operate effectively and efficiently if we have a generator to power all this. The last big thing we need, right now, our paging equipment is on a tower at our fire hall. The tower's aging. It's still in good condition, but moving it would mean a 2 to 3 day shutdown of our paging system. We'd have to find alternate means for emergency calls to get called out to us. What I am suggesting we do is to put in a utility pole, a power pole, 60 foot high, 65 foot high. And this could be put in place ahead of time, and it only would require a 2 to 3 hour time to transfer from one building to the other. But the other big gain, I feel, is that there's a lot less liability. It's not a tower that, the local kids might try and climb or anything like that. It's just a pole. There's zero maintenance to it. It's a lot more cost effective in the long run and safer. So as you can see on the table there, I've laid out the costs for those. When you get into fire protection, cost just seems to climb dramatically. Just the bunker gear stalls for 35 stalls was $21,000. But according to NFPA requirements, this is what we're supposed to have to help prevent this cancer. So, and the other items are all laid out there for you to see.
Your agencies pay off on that first, when I added it was $7,000.
Okay, I may have.
Anyhow, just to let you know.
Yeah.
That can be fixed now.
Yeah, I should have double checked. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay.
Yeah. So, and on top of this, there's a lot of stuff that would be very, very beneficial. A bunker gear dryer, which is a drying cabinet that has hot air forced through the gear. It allows us to decrease our drying time after washing bunker gear from 2 to 3 days down to anywhere from 12 to 16 hours. And where this is a big gain for us is we have 33 members At $5,000 a set for bunker gear, we can't afford to buy people a second set of bunker gear while theirs is drying. So if we have, 7 or 8 of our most active members are waiting for their gear to dry and can't respond to a call for 3 days, it's not very good. So this would be a huge benefit to us to have the ability to slow that or decrease that time. A hose washer, the hoses are no different than our bunker gear after a call. They're dragged through all the unburnt combustibles. They come out of that house and they're black. And that's all cancer-causing material that's on those hoses as well. So it's very important that we wash them. Right now, we do wash them with, a brush and soap and bucket of water. And it works, but it's not really effective. So if we could have the proper equipment to do so, it's just more protection for our firefighters. The other thing we'd like to add is a pressure washer that's mounted in the hall. These last a lot longer and are much better quality than the mobile gas-powered ones. Plus, we don't want to run a gas-powered pressure washer in the hall if we're, on hose or on trucks or whatever it may be. This one here would also heat the water to make it more efficient. Solvents and flammable locker. It's, there are a lot of solvents and chemicals that we do have on site that really it just requires a safe place to put them, and instead of just on open shelves as they are now. The hose dryer, the big benefit to the hose dryer, I mean, currently we lay our hose out on the truck bay floors, and over 2-3 days they dry, but then after 2-3 days we're asking all the members to come back in, repack everything, store it, and our members are already putting time into calls, training, meetings, MFR trainings. There's every week of the month we're out doing something regardless of whatever calls for service we get. So having this just allows us to stack it up against a wall. It dries and it's easier on our members. But also hose and storage racks, all our hose right now is piled in a corner sitting on the floor getting musty and dirty and gross, and having proper places to store stuff is pretty key to keeping a smooth, efficient, and clean fire department. And as indicated with the previous table, all the pricing is here that I was able to find on this. So again, the equipment listed in this presentation is all permanently connected to the building. It's not mobile, it's not transportable, so it would be considered a part of the construction costs. And as I said before, we would still be responsible for much of the other costs as far as furnishing everything else that's required in the building. And again, a lot of these items would benefit the fire service as a whole through the municipality, especially if you take into consideration how central we are to everybody else. We respond mutual aid to almost every other department within the municipality as is. So we're already going to be going. So the benefits would just be used that much more. So on behalf of the members of the Yilbroken District Fire Department, we'd like to request funding from the Candace Community Building Fund, which was previously known as the gas tax, in the amount of $193,377.34 to purchase the equipment listed as listed in this presentation.
Am I good? Okay. This is new. Are there any questions? I see Councillor Surratt, you have a question.
Do I shut it off now?
Nope, you're good.
Jonathan, how many departments have any of this equipment that you're talking about in the municipality of Argyle? That you know of? Maybe you don't know the answer, but I'm just wondering.
Within the municipality, I don't think there is any.
I didn't think so, but I just wanted you to know way more.
Wedgeport does have a Cascade compressor.
Yes.
Up to 4,500 PSI. Yeah. West Pubnico also has one up to 4,500 PSI. Wedgeport also has a commercial grade washing machine, but it is not an extractor washer, as I discussed earlier. Besides that, I really don't think there's anybody that has any of this equipment within the municipality.
Very good, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Jonathan? Go ahead, CEO.
It's the technology.
I know.
Mike, I'm happy to wait if other councillors have questions before.
Okay, we
saying
have
anything.
one other.
I'm happy to wait.
Okay, Councillor Saunier?
Thank you. Jonathan, great presentation, and thank you for what you do. You kind of said it at the end here about being central located, and that's attractive to me, especially for your compressor. You can serve the volunteer in different locales much easier from where you are than the other extremes of the municipality, I guess. How many members is there in your
34.
34? Yeah. Okay. I think everything you've said here to me makes sense, all of it. However, it comes with a pricey price. But I will say this, I don't know what the will of council is, but I'll say it again, it does make sense. And as volunteers, and especially the job you do, you deserve serious attention. And I guess that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Surratt?
Good to see you after this. Jonathan, some of this stuff could be used by other departments, like you said, but in all practicality for like the Islands District, for us to take our hoses and to bring them to Eelbrook and then get them walked and bring them back, it's not going to work.
No, it wouldn't
between
be,
you and
it
I,
wouldn't be
and
very
defense
practical.
That's not practical. Yeah.
But the hose washer is very small and portable.
Oh, I thought it'd be hooked up to the building. I thought you meant.
It's hooked up by a hose to the building.
Oh, okay, it could be.
Yeah, the
But
hose
really,
washer itself.
we need to go get in, come back. We just do what we do now. We wash our stuff and that. And, some of it could be used, but some of it would be quite cumbersome to come from Westport or probably go to use there.
I think the biggest benefit, as far as people coming to us to use some of it, would be the extractor washer.
Absolutely.
No question asked. That is a major thing that we're not doing enough of. Some departments are sending their gear away once a year to be cleaned, and it's inspected at the same time, which is a big boost. But there's a company out there called Clean Heroes. They'll come to your hall and clean your gear.
Oh, is that right?
And for us to do 33 sets of gear, or 34 sets of gear, sorry, would cost us $8,000. That's clean and inspect one trip. So it's not very viable. But again, we're not taking the precautions and the steps we need to take to keep our members safe the way we are doing it right now. And at $8,000, if we were to do that once a year, that's almost 30% of our operating budget.
Because all in the district, we don't wash our stuff very often.
And you're not alone.
And I'm not saying it's right.
Nope.
I'm just saying it's just.
And you're not alone, but it's something we really need to look at changing because it's not safe.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. You press that. Okay, CEO Muse.
Thank you. My questions are operational. That's why I want to wait to have I'm sure there might be other questions that come out. So I looked at the numbers, and obviously you'll get probably 71% of your HST back.
Yes.
So your request is of 193 is probably closer to like 175 and change, just so that the council's aware that the amount after the taxes are reimbursed would be lower. And I don't think it would be appropriate for you to do this today, but I think it might be important for us to see how much of this equipment would be used regionally and how much of the equipment would be used by you as the department. So again, I'm not expecting you to, I'm sure you probably know it in your head, right? But it might be, before we make a decision, it might be useful for us to get that breakdown to say, this is the stuff that we all need, not just Eelbrook. And
Mhm.
this is the stuff that Eelbrook needs as part of the construction.
Sure.
That might help us make a decision one way or another on how we would fund it. The prices, I presume they come from the fabricators, or the
Yes.
prices are all independent?
Directly from the suppliers we would purchase from, yeah.
Okay. Has any of this equipment, any or all of it actually, will it be included in the tender package? Or is it something
Not to my
over-
knowledge.
Okay.
During our discussions with Harry Jost, the architect, he has indicated that he's just looking at building systems and so on, and hasn't asked for specifics on any of the firefighting equipment.
Okay, so if the tender comes in surprisingly high, we could be faced with two decisions. One being the decision of what do we do with this tender that's higher than our budget, and also this decision which are independent from each other.
Right.
Would that be correct?
Quite possibly, yes.
Possibly
Yeah.
correct. I mean, I know the area rate would have to be.
Yeah.
It's not just us, but I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
if it's not part of the tender, then you could get a surprise there that you may actually, it may change what you do here, depending on.
Yes.
Okay, I think that was, only one other quick one. The compressor, the big one, the 6,000 PSI, where's the closest one now?
6,000 PSI?
Yeah.
Halifax, maybe? Maybe the Valley?
So how do the fire departments deal with the issue?
So after an incident is terminated, they'll take their empty bottles, drive into Yarmouth or Wedgeport or Pumnico or wherever, and have each individual bottle filled at a fire station after the fact.
And so this,
Which most times works out. But if we're on a big, long running event, I've seen it quite a few times where we would have run out of bottles, to use on scene. A small house fire that you get under control really quick and everything's good, you might go through 20, 25 bottles amongst all the members. But a big, 8 to 10 hour structure fire, without a cascade system there, you're definitely running out of bottles.
right. So you're not necessarily saving cash for the other departments, you're providing a better service.
A more efficient service
In
for the
case-
residents of the area.
Right. I apologize, so the only other thing was, are there any parts of these equipments that you can in some way recover either your cost or charge a revenue for? So like, are there any things here that if somebody had, the only other place is Halifax and it costs them $5,000 to do it, so they're not going to do it, or they're going to do it at $5,000. Is there a way that you can charge out for some of these things or not?
We could always charge for use of an extractor washer if people from outside the municipality wanted to come and use it. It wasn't something I'd considered.
Right.
And same, our air compressor could be used to also fill scuba bottles.
Right. Yeah.
So that could be a potential there.
I didn't ask the question to judge. It was more of a question of, do you have that in mind, or is it something? What I hear is this is a service you'll be providing to the municipalities 9.
That was my
Right. So
thoughts.
some of it is
Yeah.
going to be for free,
Yeah.
which is a service provision for them. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oops. Were there any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, with the cascade systems that are in a lot of the halls out there now, do they have the ability to fill the 4,500 PSI bottles?
Yes,
That's what I
up
thought.
to 4,500, yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
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 And that was something else I was going to ask you. First sign of getting aging, I guess. But anyway, yeah. So the cascade systems, we do have there now in our halls are
The Cascade
sufficient,
compressors will fill up to 4,500.
are sufficient to fill.
It's when you're on a scene that we don't have the ability
Uh-huh.
to do that yet.
But some of the trucks on scenes have bottles
Have Cascade systems, yeah.
with them.
But they
Exactly.
can only fill 2,216 pound bottles. The largest Cascade systems in the area have 4,500 pound bottles on them. But the problem is it's just a static pressure. So as soon as you open the valve on one, that pressure immediately starts dropping.
Exactly.
So the most you'd ever fill on the existing systems, if it's a 4-bottle system, you could possibly fill 2 4,500 pound bottles. Possibly.
And that's the only other thing I was going to mention as far as filling scuba diving bottles and stuff like that. We thought about it in our department, but it comes with quite a liability as well. So that's why we steered away from that one.
Yeah, it makes complete sense.
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions for Jonathan? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Jonathan. We usually don't make a decision right now.
Nope.
It's something we'll discuss later on.
Yeah.
But thank you for your presentation and all your information. We
Thank you very
appreciate it.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next on our agenda is the adoption of the minutes. So we have minutes from the 142nd Annual Council Meeting from April 12th, 2022. You had the chance to look at the minutes? Anybody willing to move those minutes?
I'll move.
Okay, moved by Councillor Digdon, seconded by Warden Muse. Any questions on those minutes? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Next, we have number 5, business arising from the minutes. We have 5A, proclamation policy, Lyme Disease Awareness Month. So we talked about this a little bit at our last meeting about whether or not we are going to make proclamations? Are we not going to make proclamations? We debated a little bit. So I'm gonna pass this one on to our Deputy CAO.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Madam Chair mentioned, you guys debated at the last meeting whether we were going to pass proclamations, and what you were referring to was the Lyme Disease Month. After looking into doing a little bit of research, I guess we found that last year you did pass that proclamation. So so there was discussion around whether we had a policy or not. We looked, we could not find any policy, but we could find in the minutes that the council had agreed to look into a proclamation policy, but it doesn't look like there was any proclamation policy passed. So I guess we did a little bit more research reached out to the other towns and municipalities to see what they were doing, and I gave you some examples there, but most of them do not or have a way of dealing with proclamations. So I guess the question is whether council wants to make a motion to have staff prepare a policy and bring it back to council for discussion. I think that would be what I would suggest, and I'll pass it back on to Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So what is the wish of council? Do we want to come up with a policy on this? How do we want to deal with proclamations? Any thoughts? Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we have staff do a policy based on what Scott's found out from other municipalities. Some of you's been here quite a while. We used to get an extremely large amount of them. That's why we had to do something about it. And now we don't get nearly as many, or we don't see them anyhow. And that's probably because most municipalities don't entertain them, so they're not sending them out. But yeah, I'd like to see a policy.
Okay, do we
That
have
was the motion.
seconder to that motion? Okay, seconded by our warden. Any questions or comments on that motion? CAO Muse?
Just, we're happy to do a policy. Most policies say no proclamations. So I presume by the motion, that's what you'd like to see, because we can go left or right on that. So I would say that Councillor Donaldson is correct. We used to get a ton of them. And then when we stopped entertaining them, we stopped getting them, probably because we weren't on the list anymore, maybe. And so if it's the will of council to go with a no proclamation policy, I would suggest that you give us that clarity so we can do that for you.
That's just my intention.
Okay.
Okay.
Wonderful. That's perfect. Thank you.
So a no proclamation
Correct. So
policy. Okay. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. It's okay. Next, we have number 6 for decision. So we have two policies we're going to look at. The first one is the community litter cleanup policy. So for quite a while, we have had a community litter cleanup program, and where we were giving some money to certain community groups if they were willing to clean up the litter in the ditches. We were providing a certain amount of money per kilometer for those nonprofit organizations, and we had a policy to support that. But what we were seeing is there were some liability issues with that. So there are changes. We looked at the changes at our last meeting, and the changes are all in yellow to the policy. And basically, I guess to sum it up, it was about safety for the people who are in the ditches, which we've talked about before. We have mentioned that before, how we sometimes were worried about the safety of the residents who are doing these cleanups. So the policy covers some of those safety issues, and part of that also is about having an ad hoc committee of council made up so that they are able to be covered by the insurance. I think that does that sound right, CAO Muse? Okay. Do we have any questions or comments on that? I see Warden Muse, go ahead.
Yeah, just wondering, I know there's a liability, and I think we've had incidents where didn't someone have a needle or something stuck in their finger at one time?
That was a staff member.
That was a staff member,
not
not on
No.
this, okay, not on this program, that was a staff member,
Mhm.
exactly. And if we would have to follow, if we're going to be putting these rules in there, is it going to be easy to follow to make sure that the people out there are following this? But I think I saw where they would sign a waiver as well, right? So by signing the waiver, they would take the responsibility themselves if something was to happen. Is that correct?
CAO Muse?
correct. So 2 issues. Number 1, we love the program. So, and we know that that's what council has told us. We love the program.
Mhm.
So the approach that we took was to ask our insurers whether or not that they could be covered under our policy, which is far more comprehensive than any other small nonprofit organization. The answer was yes, and the changes are reflected in here. The waiver does not deny us entirely of any liability.
Okay.
What it would do is essentially say, look, we've read the policy, we've abided by the rules, and we're not going to hold you liable for something that happens. It doesn't mean it's a catch-all for every scenario. But what it does do is it highlights the obligation to not be negligent. So we have been diligent in saying, you got to do this, you got to wear this, you got to do that. And if they don't do that and they get hurt, then it's on them, right?
Okay.
But if they still follow all of our procedures and get hurt, it doesn't guarantee that you'll never see anything happen there. And in fact, if you like the program and you like our insurance coverage, perhaps it's in your interest to make sure people are protected.
Mhm.
And so that's the purpose of these changes. I can tell you they were endorsed by our insurers. In fact, they gave us a very heavy list, as you can see,
Mhm.
a lot of changes based on that list.
Definitely. Thank you. Councillor Bork.
My question is, we're allowed approve a kilometers of 100 kilometers per year, fiscal year. And say right now, my district, some of them missed the deadline. It was the 15th of April. But if there was kilometers left over for the spring cleanup, are they allowed to put in an application in for the spring? That's what I want to know. Because it says for the fiscal year, you have 100 kilometers for the fiscal year. CEO Muse?
First of all, anybody who meets the deadline of April 15th diligently will have priority.
Right.
And then what will have to be, it'll be the discretion of Ms. Newell, who is running the policy as to whether or not those people could be included in the spring or deferred to the fall. So don't forget, there is also a fall program.
That's right.
So they could fall into the fall. They would fall in fall, but they would not get priority over anybody else who's applied. So if we're fully
Full for the
full,
spring.
then they're like out of luck for spring, and we'll put the fall. So it is the way that we control the budget, and every year, really, it's up to council to determine what that is. And I don't know, Chantal, Ms. Newell may have information on the applications and how many we have. I don't know.
Go ahead, Chantal.
So I don't have a running count of how many applications that we have at the moment. That is something I'm working on this week. However, I will get that out to council and let you guys know how many kilometers that people are looking to do. And then we can look at it. I would say that if there's kilometers left over, why not give them to people? But as CAO Muse said, we will give the priority to the ones who applied by the deadline. And then if there are kilometers left over, then we can reach out and go from there. How's that sound?
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the policy? Councillor Surratt.
Just a comment. Reading this, the whole everything in yellow here, I almost wouldn't apply. There's so many restrictions. But anyhow, just a comment. My God, and I know we have to do it, don't get me wrong. But my gosh, yeah. Anyhow, it seems to be such a simple thing to go and come back in addition, come out, but it's not that simple. There's many things we have to cover ourselves with, and I understand that. Just a comment, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Boudreau.
Just to clarify, when's the closing date for that?
April 15th
April, so we're.
for the spring. There's one in the fall as well.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor D'Entremont.
Kind of on the same note, I know this, I was going to say groups, but residents who took it upon themselves this past weekend because it was, I don't know if Earth Day was on the 23rd or the 22nd, but they actually got organized and did some roads. I know in Lower West, I don't know about the rest of the municipality, but a shout out to them for taking their own initiative and cleaning it up. So thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah. Being one of the people that was very instrumental in getting this started years ago, I'm going to make a motion that we approve this policy.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Okay. Any other questions, comments on that? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried. Thank you. Next, we have 6B, Article C40, flag policy amendments. So this was debated a couple of weeks ago, or a month or so ago, and then we had tabled it because we wanted to have an in-person discussion. We were presented a couple of options. We have two options for our policy revisions in front of us. Option one. Let me just review this. Option one, so this is the one where we talked about keeping our Acadian flag up at all times. And what we would do is we would have an extra flagpole, and please correct me if I'm wrong. And then we would be flying our municipal flag on that one. But if we had a special request, then we would use that flagpole for the special request. For example, African Nova Scotian Month. If they wanted to fly their flag, it would go on that one. So that's option one. We also have another option in front of us, option two, which is similar to our original policy, but the change is that we were going to take down the Acadian flag to put up our special events flag, but this one would be For half of the time, it would be the Acadian flag that would come down, and the other half of the time, it would be the Mi'kmaq flag that would come down. So it's kind of like a compromise, because there were some issues with taking down our Acadian flag the whole time to put up a special events flag. So this one is kind of a compromised version. So we have two options to look at tonight. So we're hoping to make a decision on choosing one of these. Is there any discussion on this? Councillor Donaldson.
I'm in favor of option one.
Option one.
I'll make that a motion so we can discuss it, if we get a seconder.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Okay. Warden Muse.
I guess the motion was made quick before we discussed each. We had a chance to discuss both, because I'm in favor of option two, because I don't know, when you look at option one and option two, it says that the flagpoles would be similar to what we have, right? I don't think there's room to put another flagpole at that location. And I think that if we're going to have 4 or 5 flagpoles, they should be in one location. I don't think we should put one aside from the others to separate it, that it should be with the others. That's why I figured that I'm in favor of the second one, which shows that we're inclusive, we're still inclusive, and it gives us an opportunity to lower either flags at a certain time. So I don't agree with option one. And if we're going to go with a similar flagpole, we have to, I think we have to pay for that. I know with what came from one councillor that, that someone was willing to donate, but they're not going to donate a flagpole of that looks like these. And in the policy, it says that they have to look the same. They have to be the same. So that's an expense, in my view, that we don't need, that we can do with 4 flagpoles and alternate.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Digdon?
You just, for Mr. Warden, that first off, that other councillor was Councillor Digdon. I will make that clear for anybody watching here this evening. I've been looking over this a lot, going into a lot. And I guess searching it out quite a bit. And across Canada now, if you want to Google, there's a lot of municipalities and a lot of cities that are going to start flying the Indigenous flag. And a lot of cities are flying them now that they used to fly them part-time or whatever, that they are going to be flying them full-time there now. I believe that it deserves to be up there full-time, the Indigenous flag, along with the Acadian flag. I just looked at one thing on our policy that we're looking at. And from July 1st to December 31st, the special flag shall replace the Mi'kmaq flag. And that right there, I have a problem with, because the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation flies in that time. The Treaty Day, October 1st, and that is in that time. And that, so I don't think, we're telling the Indigenous folks, and I won't go, I guess I'll say it here, and that this end of the province lately has had some problems with strain, and that between the Indigenous and the non-Indigenous folks. And I can't, personally, I don't think it is what we want to be viewed as. Personally, I don't want to be viewed as anyway. And if it's 8-1 here this evening, I'll be the one. that we're telling our Mi'kmaq friends, and that, yes, we are going to put your flag up, and and I don't think they deserve that but. I think that there should be behind us. I honestly feel as though there's a lot of work to do. There's no saying there's not. And that's been noticed now right across Canada. And I can't see us taking that flag down to put another flag up and telling our Mi'kmaq friends and that, this is why. And that for the price of an extra flagpole, and yes, there would be a cost involved. And that, but again, I feel as though that money we can find if we really want to find it. And the Acadians and the Mi'kmaq have relationships going back a long ways, very good relationships. And Councillor D'Entremont may be able to back me up on this one, but there used to be Indigenous folks that used to live out the road in the Lake Road in Pubnico. And that was one thing I often heard of how the Acadian folks got along with the Mi'kmaq folks living out that road, and they'd trade back and forth at that time, fish for animals that the Mi'kmaq will have killed and stuff like that. And to be honest and truthful with you, I will definitely be supporting number one, and I guess to be to put it all in perspective, and I think this is going to be hard to put a price on, really, and that if I may quote our deputy warden, and that stated that 5 poles would eliminate a lot of controversy or any controversy. And I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Councillor Donaldson?
Yeah, my point, one of my strong points for picking option one, I think this beautiful new building, it's almost a disgrace in my mind that we don't fly our own municipal flag. Whether people like the look of it or not, that could always be changed if we had to. But I think the 5th pole gets rid of all the problems. You have special events you mentioned here. There may be more, but people wouldn't be offended by taking down our municipal flag to replace another flag for a week or two at a time. But I just think we should have another pole, and it would accomplish a whole lot. And I'd be proud to see our municipal flag, as you see it at other municipal buildings when you drive around. Take notice. Not that many people do, but I'm just nosier than other people. So.
Richard, you little bugger, you stole my thunder. I was just going to say about the same thing about having our municipal flag flying there. I agree with option one. I think it's a great idea, having that, like Richard said, that other pole, having our own municipal flag there. I think how many people don't even know we have one, and for the cost of a pole, for crying out loud, the cost of this building. What the heck, and having the Mi'kmaq flag and the Acadian flag there all the time with the provincial and Canada flag, I think option one says it all.
Thank you. Councillor Saunier?
So to Warden's point, is there room to put a 5th flagpole alongside the other ones, or would it have to be separate?
That was my question. That would have been my question. Logistically, what would that look like? Go ahead, CAO Muse.
The question has been asked of our architect as you asked it. I think we all kind of look at the place and say, well, based on what it looks like, there may not, but I think it's more appropriate for your land use professionals who have been engaged on this project to tell us whether there's room or not there. To the warden's point, there may not, but I can't comment either way until I get confirmation from Graham from Wild Salt.
So if I may, as a follow-up to that, if there is no room, is it appropriate to put a 5th flagpole under the policy?
Go ahead.
I'm presuming, Madam Chair, that that question's for me, so I kind of pressed the button pretty fast. Forgive me if it's not. From a protocol perspective, it does cause some issues because while it's not entirely inappropriate to have a fifth pole somewhere, it just causes some logistical questions. In terms of how the policy is drafted, I don't think it would offset option one. If option one is voted here today, and by the way, if whichever one is voted, you're giving us a 7-day notice. You're not approving the policy today because you haven't had 7 days. So what might happen is once you choose one, we may come back with some amendments to that policy in order to accommodate your request. But I think that if you have it separate, it changes what you can potentially fly on that mast. So where the policy might say you should fly the municipal flag on that mast or on the fifth pole, if it's separate, it may change things like the order or how you present them based on protocol. I can't tell you today what that protocol looks like, but it may not look exactly like that's a fifth pole. It's located here and it flies this or that. It may have to look different. Can it be accommodated? I believe that it can, but we may have to change the policy slightly to make that happen.
So if I may, I see the potential for a moral segregation here, flagpole that's away from the others. I see the flag flying separate from the other four, and some people might recognize that as a segregated flag and maybe a lesser value to it. I wouldn't, but I see that possibility if it's not directly with the others, that's all.
Thank you. Warden Muse.
My question was exactly if we can fit a flagpole there or if we can't. And if we can't fit it there, I don't think it's appropriate to have it somewhere else. And like Councillor Sonia just said, you know, how is that going to look if we fly? It's almost as if we support you, but we don't think it should be next to ours. Anyway, it was basically the same question as what he had. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. I don't honestly feel that would be the case, especially, and again, if it was an oversight on our part, and that when the policy was done, we explained to them why the fifth pole, like Councillor Bork had mentioned here at one meeting, is off to the side, why we fly our municipal flag up on that one, and that's the one that we do take down for any other flags that may be asked to be flown. And as far as it's already been passed. The motion was made that we put up a fifth flagpole. The motion was made on the 8th of March by Richard Donaldson, and it was seconded by myself, and it was, the motion was carried 9-0, that we erected a fifth flagpole. Yeah.
It was passed that they do a policy for that. That's all it was.
No.
Yes, we can get the
Mm-hmm.
it would be appropriate to have.
Yes, it would, please. Yeah.
Councillor Sonia.
This is just a comment for the record. I support a fifth flagpole. However, I stand by the comments I made. We got to be careful of how it looks if it doesn't in line with the other four. I'm just cautioning council on that particular issue. I think it's great to be able to fly all the flags that we've mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on that? Okay, go ahead, Chantal.
Just so that we're clear.
Go ahead, Chantal.
So the motion that was made on March 8th, 2022 was, it is moved by Councillor Richard Donaldson and seconded by Councillor Glenn Digdon for council to start the process to amend Article C42 flag policy to have 5 flags flying at the municipal administration building. However, on the, sorry, hang on one second. On March 29th, 2022, the committee of the whole meeting, the flag policy was brought back up, and it is moved by Warden Danny Muse and seconded by Councillor Glenn Digdon to defer this discussion until the next meeting to have staff provide council with different options to discuss and consider.
Sorry, to consider, but that motion was made to put a 5th flagpole up, and that, at that meeting, and the motion was carried. Am I right?
Go ahead. If I may, Madam Chair. No, the motion that was made, sorry, I just want to get it right, was to start the process to amend Article C42 flag policy to have 5 flags flying at the municipal administration building. So the motion was to have staff start amending the policy to originally, yes, have 5 flags. However, on March 29th, when it got brought back up, it was deferred to have other options. So to amend the policy was passed on March 8th. Yes, you are correct. No, and the flag policy was brought back with the 5 flags flying. Right.
Just to look at other options. I'm sorry. And I honestly thought at that time the options would be where we but that motion was made, and that to have 5 flags flying and carried. To start the policy to have 5 flagpoles at the municipal office.
To start to draft the policy to have it, yes.
To have 5 flagpoles.
Yes, to have 5
yes.
flagpoles, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Surratt.
Maybe I don't understand here, but I've always thought that if we made a policy or we passed a motion, it passed. No matter what we did at the next meeting, if we didn't, and I stand to be corrected, maybe I don't know, but it has to be, not deferred, it has to be voted down, to be, what's the word? The motion has to be defeated or
With a 2/3 vote, I believe.
yes, what's the word? I don't have it. It's not deferred, it's not.
Rescinded?
Rescinded, thank you, Kathy. That's the word I was looking for. So if we didn't rescind it, somebody can maybe correct me, but the motion was passed. If it's not rescinded, although we've passed another motion on November 29th, that motion still stay if it wasn't rescinded? That's what I have always understood.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So the motion that was originally made was to have staff start to amend the policy. So that was done.
Yes.
That policy was presented to you guys on March 29th. So it would have been brought to that council meeting, the committee of the whole. Then it was put on the table, yes, and it wasn't discussed. It was given to you guys, it was not discussed because Warden Danny Muse made a motion to defer it to present another option. So the motion that was originally made was done. There was a policy that was made. It was a draft policy that was presented to you guys, but the next decision was to have more than one policy to consider.
But the March 8th one, what did the March 8th one say?
The March the 8th one says for council to have staff start the process to amend Article C42 to have 5 flags flying at the municipal administration building. So yes,
Very good.
the policy was drafted.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Got it.
Warden Muse.
We needed a policy. And until we passed that policy, that motion there was just to start a policy, which we did. Well, it was, because why would we agree to go back and amend if we couldn't amend? Why did we want a second option if we knew we couldn't get a second option? Why did you approve, or did you second a motion to have more options if we couldn't have any more options. Until the policies passed, it wasn't a motion. The policy had to pass in order for the fifth pole to come here, because that's what the motion said. Start a policy to include, which they did. But we said we want more options because we didn't have a chance to discuss any other options, which is why I made the motion to defer and bring back more options so that we can look at. I don't believe that we pass five. In order to get 5 poles, we had to have a policy that said 5 poles. And the policy was brought to us, but we said we want more options. And it was passed by everybody that we were going to look at more options. If we couldn't change it, why would we go for more options? Right?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bork?
Yeah, that's after you read the last time, that's what I'm understanding too. We directed staff for 5 flagpoles, right? And then it got brought to us, but we didn't vote on
No, we didn't
accepting that policy. So we wanted more options. So this is what I'm understanding too. So my question is to, before voting on any option, I'd like to see 5 flagpoles up. I like to see our Acadian flag up at all times, as with the Aboriginal flag as well. But before, I like to see if we can put it in front of here first. So, I mean, this is being complicated. We're complicating life over flagpoles. We have better business that we can spend our time on, but it's dear to your heart, Glenn, and the Canadian flagpole is dear to my heart as well. So I'm not, don't take me wrong, but I like to know first if we can put 5 flagpoles. If we can't, then we'll come back. Well, either way, we should come back and settle that after the second time. And I would put that to rest just for now, just to see if staff can put 5 flagpoles. And if we can't, well, we'll decide something else after. And we can always put the 5th flagpole somewhere else. And I don't see any separate, if I was from another ethnic group, say if I went to another country and I was a minority in another country, and somebody decided they wanted to put my flag to present my culture, well, I'd be honored if they had it somewhere on their grounds. So I would be flattered with that. So I see it that way. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Donaldson?
Yeah, I feel we've made a mistake somewhere along the line to do with the Robert's Rules of Order, because there's a motion for a 5th flagpole. Unless that motion is rescinded, I don't think we had a right to make a motion on March 29th for different options, because we had an option. We was asking for the 5th flagpole. Staff was to make a policy around that motion. I don't see where any other option even had a place to be looked at, because the motion was legally made and standing. And I just feel what we done on the 29th was out of order completely. It shouldn't even have been done. That's my opinion on it, but I'm no expert on the Robert's Rules of Order, but it certainly sounds like that.
Thank you. CEO Muse?
I can understand certain councillors' concern around passing a motion and feeling like the motion didn't go the way it was passed. I can assure you that both motions were passed within the Rules of Order. The difference between a regular motion and a motion to amend a policy is that when you decide to amend a policy, you are not actually approving the policy. You are approving an amendment. And so the amendment comes to you, and you have 7 days to think about it before you make it a motion. This is fundamentally the difference between most motions and the one that you did on this issue. So I can understand where there might have been some confusion, but I'm not a parliamentarian, but what I know about policies and how they work is that you do have a 7-day period to consider any amendments to any policies at any time. So in theory, you could make a motion to say you want 5 flagpoles and you want to amend a policy, which you did, and let's just go down the road of make believe. In the March meeting, you decided to approve that policy. Okay, let's just pretend for a moment that that's what happened. That's not what happened. Let's just pretend that's what happened. 3 weeks from that period of time, if we didn't order the 5th flagpole and something happened that you guys had information that you didn't have before, you can, as a council, say, hold the horses here. Yes, we said we wanted this in a policy, but since this new information, this doesn't seem relevant anymore. So therefore, I'm going to make a motion to amend the policy again. And with a policy, you can do that. It's different than if you're making a motion to spend money, for instance. If you make a motion to spend money, you made it, right? And if you want to reverse it, you got to do one of two things, right? You either have to give people notice 7 days and have 50% of people agree with your rescinding, or give people no notice and then bring it to the meeting and have 2/3 of the people voted down. That is, both of those scenarios are within Robert's Rules of Order. So I can understand the confusion. I apologize for any confusion that may have come out of this, but what you did was appropriate. As a council, what you did was appropriate. It's just a little bit more complicated because everything that you do with a policy takes time. So you didn't approve 5 flags. You approved an amendment to the policy for 5 flags. To us, there's a difference. And if there's any confusion, we can clarify the rest of it. Well, I hope that clarifies it for you.
Thank you. Councillor Digdon?
I think if you look back though on that motion and watch it, it does say, I believe, for 5 flags. And that I don't believe it says for the policy for 5 flags. I believe it says for 5 flags to fly. And the only thing here, I think, so you made the motion here this evening for the 5 flags?
For option 1.
Okay, for option 1. Okay. Okay, that supports 5 flags, and I don't believe it says that the 5 of them are flying out at that area right there. Just 5 flags on this property.
But we didn't approve the policy.
That's what,
Where there's a motion on the floor.
that's what option 1 says.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and it's been seconded. So there's a motion on that for 5 flags, and I believe whether 4 flies out there and 1 flies off to the side, are you all right with that?
Completely fine. Flag protocol people will tell us where the flag should be flying.
Exactly.
I'm just making a guess. If it's an off by itself, probably the Canadian flag goes on.
And
That's a guess.
And I don't know, but I believe that whatever it is. I honestly believe right now we can vote on this. I believe there's more to this right now than the flag issue and that. So we have a motion on the floor, and I'll call question on the motion.
What if there's still people who want to talk?
If there are still people on the list, that would be your call, whether I could be wrong here, but I think that if you wish to continue, that you may want to ask the rest of the council if that is in their interest. Usually when a question is called, it's not debatable. It's not a debatable motion, but out of respect of the 9, you may want to ask the group whether they want to make their points or whether they want to withdraw their points.
Okay, so we still have 5 councillors who would like to speak on this. How do we feel about that? Is that okay with council?
I would like to hear their comments.
Yes?
Question's been called.
You don't have to accept it.
Okay, I would like to hear because there are 2 councillors who haven't spoke yet, and I'd like to hear especially the ones who haven't spoke what they have to say. So Councillor D'Entremont.
I was just trying to figure out, if the question about the location, is there room out there or not? Do we have to speak to our architects to figure that out? Do we have to ask the question? And another thing is, do we need a legal opinion on all of the motion being made and, is that the actual motion? Was that the intent? I'm a little bit confused on the whole thing here. So do we need like a legal opinion to figure out if that was the actual motion? Seems to be, but the person who made the motion maybe and seconded aren't agreeing. I'd kind of like to see some clarification here before I can, make a decision on the policy. So.
Thank you. Go ahead, CAO.
I can address some of that. So I can't address the debate question or how you're going to vote. I can address the motion. The motion is taken from audio. So we would take the motion from audio taping of the minutes. The official notation of the minutes is the written form of those minutes. We have that by policy. So whatever the written form is, stands. So whether we disagree with a motion in question, and that may or may not be the case here today, if there is a disagreement with how it was said, that should happen when we approve the minutes at the subsequent meeting, if there's an issue. So it's incumbent upon council to make sure that the minutes reflect their recollection of what occurred. We don't need a legal opinion on that. We have a policy that says the written form is the official form of council. It is entirely possible that Councillor Digdon, if he made that motion, may have intended a different motion, if in fact he made the motion. So, and that might be different than how it came out. Our job is to document to the best of our ability what came out and to advise you what needs to happen, because we could not have accepted a motion that said we need 5 polls, because the motion would have had to have included an amendment to the policy, because the policy itself does not include 5 polls, it includes 4. So it is entirely possible that Councillor Digdon's intention and what was said or done were different. That's entirely possible. But we have minutes and we have to follow those. And I don't think there's a legal opinion that would change that. But listen, if council wants us to go back to the audio, and we will certainly be more than happy to do that, and we would do that, outside of the meeting for you privately, so that you could understand what happened. I think the question, and I don't want to speak politically on the question, but I think the question is whether you want 5 polls or not. If you believe that 5 polls is more representative of what you'd like to be as an organization, then passing the motion in question is appropriate. If you have to amend this policy because the wording isn't right? So for instance, this says that it has to look similarly. Well, maybe that's impossible. Maybe we can't actually make it look similarly. We have an intention to make it look similarly, but maybe we just can't do that. Maybe we have to make an amendment at that point. But I think the first question is, what is your intention? Is it 4 or is it 5? If it's 5, it's appropriate to vote in favor of this, meaning that you're giving us 7 days to kind of look at what that policy should look like. It doesn't mean that instantly it happens. It means we have 7 days to look at that policy, and we may, in between now and the next meeting, may present to you amendments that you could approve or not approve. Okay, that could still happen, because after we go away, we might get Wild Salt saying, you have plenty of room there, or the opposite, and that might change the way you view that. But if your intention is 5, it's appropriate to say yay on this one, because you're not approving the policy exactly as worded. You are approving the intentions of the policy, which is to go to 5. That's the intention. How you get to 5, you can amend as council, right? All we want as staff is to be very clear in your direction. As long as we have clear direction from you, we will execute that. If your intention is 4, not 5, you should not vote in favor of this motion, because this motion will start the road of looking at 5 polls, regardless of its location. I hope that makes sense to all of you, because it is kind of moving around and we're talking a lot about flags today. So,
All right, that clarifies what I was thinking about, the fifth flag and the location, because that's important to me also.
Me too. So that was my question too. So if we approve this, if let's say 5 flagpoles, we feel are okay, but yet we find out we can't. For me, kind of like what Councillor Sonia said, for me, it's important that they look the same and that where they're placed is important to me, because I worry that somebody will unintentionally or intentionally think that if we put one off to the side, it means something different. I worry about that. So if we approve, let's say we approve that yes, 5, and then you guys do some research and come back and say, we can have 5, but they can't all be together, then what? I know, I hate to throw something even more complicated in there.
It's an excellent question, and I think it's the worry of everybody around here, around like we think we know what we want, but we don't know until we know. As staff, we won't effectively start doing a bunch of research unless we know that's what you want, right? So the first step is, what do you want, right? And this is the question today. If what I can assure you is the moment we know where we could put that 5th flagpole, we will let you know. The moment we know, you will know. And then at that point, you might say, hey, I still want 5, but I want to change wording. I want to do something to the policy. Or, worst case scenario, if you've said yay to 5, and then we say, well, this is the only place you can put the 5th one, and you go, crap, this is a lousy location. We haven't ordered a poll. We haven't done any of that stuff just yet. We've just researched the situation. You can change your mind. Okay. So we will act on the majority of council. That's what we will do. Yeah. So again, policy gives you a lot more flexibility around making a decision like this or making it like this, like a little bit over time. I'm hoping that attempts to answer your question, but I can assure you, as soon as we know where that 5th poll can go, we will let you know. Okay. And if you want to bring it back to council, that request typically goes through the warden or the chair of the time, and we can bring it back. It has to come here anyway, because we have to read the final version of that policy before we even approve it. Does that make sense?
That does.
Thank you.
That answers it for me. Thank you.
So basically, we're trying to please everybody by having 5 flags. That's what we're trying to do. Is there a policy right now, just to be clear, that our 4 existing flagpoles be exactly in a row the way they are placed now? That's just, it's not a policy. So there's no policy in restricting and putting the flag away from there, a flagpole. I mean, my fear, as much as Nicole's, is that, not so much my opinion. I'm all for 5 flags, poles there is. But I just, will the person or the people who have their flag flying on a flagpole that's away from the other 4 have an offense to that? Councillor Burke says she's fine with it. I'm fine with it, but it's not about us. It's about the people we're going to entertain on that flagpole. That's my only question. Other than that, I am fine with 5 flagpoles.
Thank you. CEO Muse.
Answer quick. If you decide in favor of 5 flagpoles and the 5th flagpole cannot be located in the current location, meaning it's in a different location, I will also assure you that any sort of protocol or changes to the language in order to be respectful of all people will be presented to you. So if we have a situation where we have a single pole somewhere, we may actually breach protocol by changing the order. That might in fact be something that we recommend in order to respect the language or culture or event or whichever. Okay, so I think we're speculating now as to whether it can be there or can be somewhere else, and we're also speculating on which flag would be flown in that 5th location. So I think until we get a motion and until we do our research based on that motion, we'll then be in a better position to answer that question, hopefully, for you.
Thank you. Warden Muse.
So that I'm clear, if it passes tonight, we're not passing the policy. We're passing the first reading of the policy, so that this policy could be defeated at the next meeting. Is that correct? We're passing the first reading.
That is correct. We are passing the 7-day notice, right, that policies require.
We're not.
So we're choosing one option over another.
Right.
So we said, let's do this. let's do a policy for this. I'm like, okay. And so we did that. And it was like, well, let's do a policy for this and this. Okay. So then we bring you the both policies, and then it's like, okay, well, we want this one. Okay. So we'll get rid of that one. That'll go away, and we'll deal with this one. And it may be defeated at the next meeting based on information that you receive between now and the next. We're not in the position to do research on things that we don't know. Once we have direction, we will research. We will take a look. You might change your mind. You might love it. But you are, again, by choosing this, you're basically going back to the original motion.
Right.
The original motion was, let's change the policy for 5.
Right.
So now you have a policy that was changed for 5. So basically you start the clock. With a motion today, you start the clock. So at the next meeting, or earlier, 7 days if you wished it, you would then make a decision on that policy amended or non-amended.
Right.
Minor amendments can happen without the 7-day notice. Major amendments, you'd have to start the clock again. I don't envision that. I envision minor amendments only. So then you would be in a situation at the next meeting to say, yay with amendments, or nay.
Okay.
Okay, just so we're clear.
So we bypass by saying yes now, the policy would have to have 5. We could not defeat the policy with 5 because the motion here says 5. Is that correct? Because we're not passing the policy. We're passing the first reading. The policy is going to be accepted at the next.
Correct. So
next time it comes up.
In theory, the council could reject the policy of 5 at the next meeting. In theory.
Right.
In practical terms,
it doesn't usually happen.
We don't. That's not usually what happens.
Because you approve the first reading, which means you agree with the way it's written.
Correct. It's correct. Right. Correct. You're basically agreeing with the way it's written. What I'm saying is there may be amendments based on what we learn about where the 5th pole could go. But from our perspective, that would be the extent and maybe the order of the flags, but that doesn't change the intent of the policy. Okay. So we would do nothing to change the intentions of the policy, and we would not present you any other options other than 5. Right. That's what a yay would be today.
Exactly. But want to make sure that this basically approves the policy in a sense that the main gist of the policy is approved tonight. It's just that minor changes could be made.
Your intentions are approved tonight, but the policy is not.
It's not. There you go.
Councillor Digdon.
Question on the motion, please.
Are you good with that, Councillor Surratt?
Question on
Okay. Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded?
Nay.
Motion carried. Do you want that recorded? Do you want that recorded?
No, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Good discussion, guys. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to get rid of Guy here. Confusing. It is like some of those pieces, right? And that's why these conversations are so important. Make sure that everybody's on the same page. Right. Right. And it's still not finished yet.
Learning curve.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, in all fairness, if I may, it's not finished yet. But at some time, we got to put this to rest.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, the first official language now in Nova Scotia is Mi'kmaq. And that they passed that at the House quicker than what we can pass a flagpole here in Argyle, the municipality of Argyle. So come on, folks, we have to draw a line here somewhere, Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, we are at notice to council. So Article C34, Fire Services Capital Grant Program. So looking through this, this comes from CAO Muse. I'm assuming this comes from our program or our plan from what we've talked about for funding trucks. And when Councillor Surratt came forward with a financial request, we weren't sure if we had a policy, whether or not we had a policy. So this is a policy that we are looking at for that specific purpose.
I have highlighted, so all this is new. So you see highlights. It's where I have questions for you to give me some guidance on. This one, when we did our $40,000 a year, when we started with Quinnen, and we said we need a policy.
Mhm.
And then East Kemp came up with a request faster than we could blink an eye. And then we're like, we need a policy. And then Islands came in, and then our pants were down. Like we didn't have a policy, right? So that's not on you, that's on us, right? So we quickly, there's two issues here. The second one is on the second policy, and it has to do with who is eligible and the amount. So what you see here would support modest levels of support. So I want to be very clear. The presentation you had today is not a modest level of support. That would have to be done through political intentions, okay? We can't have a policy for that, and we probably need a more comprehensive strategic plan around fire departments if we're going to start going down that road, which I'm not suggesting yes or no, that we should or should not. I'm just saying we need more. This would say that you're capped at $25,000. So you can't request more than 25 for any given year, and you cannot go further than 5 years. So I guess 25 times 5 is 125,000. So this is for vehicles, this is for equipment, this is for the 9 units. However, the intention is very clearly stated at the front. And this part is something that I hope that you think about before we actually pass this. One is that this is created to assist fire departments that cannot set a reasonable area rate to recover the cost of investment, due either to the high purchase cost or to the limited number of residents represented by that department. What does that actually mean? What it means is this is particularly highlighting your smaller fire departments with a small population, with a small area rate. It doesn't mean that Eelbrook, West Pubnico, or Wedgeport wouldn't qualify. That's not what it means. However, what it means is you need to prove to us that you can't afford it by putting a reasonable area rate. Perfect example with Quinnen. They had a big expense, and it was like going to be like 14 cents or something ridiculous, foolish, to pay for something that really should not have cost anyone 14 cents. I mean, if it was a building, that's one thing. So what we as a council said was we need to support that financially. So this is the intention of the policy. Every year we've budgeted 40,000. We're in year 4, I believe, or 3, coming in on 4 for the Quinnen and perhaps even East Kemp. East Kemp might be one less year. However, at some point it expires. I'm not going to comment as to when. But what I'm basically telling you is that we're setting a cap limit at $40,000 a year. I have highlighted up to 50 ? That would mean that you would be prepared as a council to support two maximums a year. So to me, that makes sense to go to 50 rather than 40. However, your budget currently shows 40. Okay. The authority is all under sections 294 to 296. It's been well read. And the eligibility requirements are basically, and the application form is all included in the policy. It's an internal form. It basically says, how you can pay for this thing, right? And they have to give us certain pieces of information. I'm going to stop there, and I won't speak on the other policy, but only to say that when it comes up, I'll speak to it now because they're both in some way related. Mm-hmm. The fire registration policy that's going to come in next, if there's questions, I'll answer them. But I'll just say quickly that they kind of belong together because one registers effectively the fire department. Mm-hmm. The other says you got to be registered in order to qualify. Okay? Every fire department is registered with us today under an old system. The new policy is the new system and has been endorsed and passed by many municipalities, and it has been written by the Association of Municipal Amans, and they've had legal review, and it includes annotations and all sorts of beautiful things. It's a well-crafted policy. It might scare you as a chief to read it, but in the end, there's a form that is just a bit more detailed as to what they're able to provide as a service. So if West Pubnico says, hey, I can fight a fire, Quinnen might say, well, hi, I can fight a fire and I also have MFR, or first response, medical first responders, right? So they tell us what they're able to do. right? And they have to show us the volunteers that are trained in order to do that. That's protecting us and it's protecting them. The last thing I would say on that policy is while the first one I really didn't go and get consultation from the fire departments on, the second one I did. And I received one comment saying, wow, very complicated, but we're committed on helping the fire departments anyway. So I said, thank you for the comments, but I really didn't receive that much from them. In fact, when I did receive that, we stopped and we're like, oh, shoot, we better make sure we're on the right page here. But really not hearing anything else and not pursuing it any further, we decided that it was appropriate to bring it to you for 7-day notice. So that's actually both policies at once, and I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? We can start with the first one on the Fire Services Capital Grant Program. Are there any questions on that? Try again. It's not coming up. It's not here. Oh, glitch number one. I told you there was a button. There was. Is that member because? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. We are going to start with Councillor Bork.
Thank you, Warden, Deputy Warden. The increase to 50,000, can we do that this fiscal year, like for this policy, or and if we can, yes. You said you recommended that we put it up to 50. So what? That's that going to hurt anything or?
To answer your question is that's entirely up to you. If you feel strongly that it should go to 50 and you feel strongly that it should be in our 2022-2023 budget, we will make sure that happens.
Because if you're capping at 25 and it's at 40, it's kind of an odd number. So I think it should go to 50.
I agree, but only in the so if we go to 50, nobody may actually be able to benefit from that because Islands is already on that waiting list. So I think if you didn't do the 50 this year, that would still be okay because I think the expiry might be next year and it's more important when the new applications come in rather than the old. I'm happy to put 50 in there this year. I'm not suggesting that we don't. I'm just saying I'm not sure we'd be able to spend it this year because, I mean, we could give the islands 10, for instance, instead of waiting for the other couple of years. I suppose I correct myself there. We could do that in theory, and that would be up to council. If council wishes that, we will bring that to your we'll bring it to the council, and once for budget, and once the policy is changed, we'd actually execute that 10,000 and make sure Islands was paid. They're paid, but it's kind of like a prepayment.
Mm-hmm.
We would show it as an expense in the year, in the appropriate year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? Okay, so we're good with that? That's just our 7-day notice.
Yeah, and first reading. Yeah, I mean, you can do that by motion.
Okay.
If you wish, just for clarity.
Okay.
Is that we're accepting this as a 7-day motion, but that doesn't mean you're accepting the policy. You accept it.
7-day notice, okay. Councillor Surratt?
Just a question of what Danny has been saying here about first reading. Is it an actual first reading? I guess maybe I never heard that term for a policy, but maybe it's always been there. Thank you. If the CAO could answer that.
Go ahead.
With respect to the warden, the first reading as a term is usually designated for bylaws. Some call the 7-day notice a first reading, and it's not technically, well, it's technically wrong, but it's not it's not really wrong. It's not it's like, well, it's like speeding, right? Like, you know, if you're going 55 or you're going 80, like it's not a major thing, but yes, you're right. It is a 7-day notice. Some may call that first reading, but that is a bylaw term. Yep.
Any other questions on that? Somebody willing to make a motion?
I'll make the
Okay. Seconded by Counselor Donaldson. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you. Next, we kind of talked a little bit about the fire services registration policy as well, which there are some highlights under there as well. Are there any questions on that one for the CAO? Seeing none. Councillor Surratt?
So move.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Digdon, seconded. Any question? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Good. Correspondence and for information. So we have, there's a letter from the municipality of Barrington, proposed amendments regarding agricultural uses. There is a letter there. Any questions on that one for the CAO? Okay, next we have the annual accountability report for the Yarmouth County Trail Development Association. So in that one, there's a letter and it talks about the funding and where the monies are going and how much it's costing. It's always good to get an idea, right, of what that costs. And we know all the volunteer hours that get spent on working on those trails as well. Any questions on that for the CAO or Deputy CAO? Okay, seeing none. We then have 8C, the draft capital budget for 2022-2023, and our CAO is going to, he said, speak briefly on that.
I know that I'm competing with somebody from the Blue Jays, and I know I can't win because they're professional ball players. What you will see here is no need for debate, so I will take very quick attention. I want you to take this home with you. You also have a report in your inbox that talks about each project. The report is organized by things you've already approved in order. So, I mean, hard pressed to kind of backtrack on some capital projects. And then there's some that are new. And then there's also inside both of those are contributions. So there's a vast difference between the Wedgeport wastewater design and install of septic tanks and a contribution to Bell Canada for rural internet. One takes exactly 4 minutes and the other takes 3 years, right? So, so I just want you to take the time to look at, first of all, look at the volume, look at the projects that are there. And I also, in the report, I also highlighted and I recognize that there might be certain things that I've missed that I will make sure you know, is there are projects, excuse me, that are not on this list. And I tried to explain why. Why aren't they now? Most of them are because of funding. Is that we don't have the funding. It's too big for us to do on our own. That's mostly the reason, or they're really not planned yet. They're on the radar, but really far away. So we did our best here. This list has been worked on by all of your leadership staff. So from operations to recreation and anyone in between. So they have highlighted these projects. I'm going to stop there. And if there's any questions in like the nature of these projects, et cetera, I will entertain them. If there's any questions around financial, like what's the financial capacity and all that, I would suggest that we'll go through that in detail when we do the budget stuff, so that you'll see, you know, how much money's left in the reserve and how much, you know, how much gas tax you're spending and all that. I don't think it's appropriate to do that at 8:11 on a random Tuesday, 26th of April. But when we do the budget deliberation, you probably have to roll up your sleeves a little bit and ask those questions. And I'll stop there.
And that budget deliberations mid-May usually?
We usually try to start in the late first week of May into the second week of May. We typically have 2 or 3 meetings, and we typically also cancel the committee of the whole because we do all the work in advance, and many of us fish, and having it on the last of May is not appropriate usually.
Right.
So that's the general practice. We're talking internally. I have spoken with the warden around what we should do this year that might be a little different. Maybe we make the groups a little smaller. Maybe we engage more department heads to have the conversation rather than hear me and Marcia. So you can hear the actual guts of an operational budget rather than me saying, well, we're going to get a backhoe. So we're going to do that. I think we can do that. We can do it hybrid. We can have people up on the screen, small groups, and we can have them in different rooms, and we can move people around. So these are just thinking out loud moments. I welcome any kind of like, hey, I'd like this to happen. Some of you have been here a long time and have suggestions to how to present the budget. We are all ears. So just let us know. We always like to do things a little differently, hopefully better for you without boring the heck out of you. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Digdon?
Small groups, you can send 5 different groups into one room in there to talk, and they're gonna come back here with 5 different ideas of what they heard. And so that's pretty well the way it works when you're listening to, if everybody's hearing the same thing, at least then you're all hearing the same thing.
Yeah.
So just my idea on it, that's all.
Councillor D'Entremont?
Just coming back to the correspondence and for information, the proposed amendment from the municipality of Barrington, I'm just wondering why they sent it to us for information. Like, do we ever send our proposed amendments to anybody? Or is there something more significant there that I've been trying to read between the lines, but I can't seem to figure out?
If we do any major amendments to our land use, we are obligated to inform our neighbors in case it impacts them. So that's a relatively new rule.
Okay.
So did we do it 3 years ago? No.
No.
Should we do it now? I should say, do we do it now? Should we do it now? Yes, we should. Barrington has done a good job with that, and Yarmouth has done the same. The municipality.
It's just I know that Queens had amended their agricultural uses, and I heard from some people who were not very happy about those, and basically said, "I hope they're not coming our way." So I'm just wondering if it's the same thing. I think their public hearing or whatever was last night in Barrington, so it'd be interesting to find out what came out of that. So
I think that's an excellent way for you to be informed as councillors around what kind of appropriate land use is for your community, and that might be different from Barrington to you. The purpose of them telling us that they're making those changes is in case we might catch an interest. I mean, we may be interested in the same change or in a different one, or we might say, heck no, we don't want that. But that's the intention.
Okay, great.
We are working on a regional planning. So when we do that, we'll all be part of the same. If that happens, if and when that happens, we'll all be part of the same team anyway. So all of these changes would likely look a lot. It may not look the same, but we'd all be informed.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councillor Sonia?
Just to follow up on what Calvin was saying, is that making us kind of accountable to our neighboring communities and municipalities? And is it just restricted to farming?
Through you, Madam Chair, it is not restricted to farming. It would be any major amendment. I don't think minor amendments are worthy of this, and you probably wouldn't get anything. But if there's major changes in, like, let's say, wind turbine separation distances, our neighbors are obligated to tell us for 2 reasons. Because sometimes the impact of that change can impact our community, and we would have no say in how that was amended. Any amendment to your land use and your bylaw, your municipal planning strategy or your land use bylaw are yours to make. They are yours to approve, not anybody else. So the downside of that is if you say, hey, you want an open pen shellfish aquaculture, and you land it in the mouth of a river that spans both Barrington and Argyle, there you have a situation where you ought to be advising Barrington, because you're now impacting more than one community. Secondly, it may not be a nuisance issue. It may be hey, that's a really good idea issue, right? So you might want chickens to run loose, or you may want them penned, and you're not satisfied that our land use is effectively doing that. So it would be your responsibility to say, hey, CAO, do we have this? Should we have it? And we would look at that for you, and see if there's improvements that are needed. I think the responsibility of council in this is to make sure that you're talking with your councillors, your neighboring councillors, asking questions, finding out what their community are saying so that you can understand what the issues might be if ever you want to do that yourself, or maybe just go, thank God we didn't do that, right? But that's your responsibility.
It is an interesting concept because, I mean, from one municipality to another is just 1 foot, right? So, I mean, what's done on the border, for instance, can easily affect another, whether it's agriculture or marine life or whatever. So it's quite interesting, yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, financial requests, there's nothing. Agenda top, oh, Warden Muse.
I know you asked if there was anything else to add to the agenda, and I just remembered something I should have. And it has to do, do you remember a couple meetings ago, we had a call, Kathy, you explained, we had an email from a guy who does. Mark Perrier, yeah. I called him again because I said I would find out. And I did talk to him last week. What he does, it's all volunteer, what he does, except he needs a place to stay. He needs maybe one meal a day, okay? And I asked him how long this would take, and he said, it depends on how many people you. What he does is he interviews people, is what he does, right? We can use that. We can use that on our website. We can use it as long as we don't make money off of it, right? He has the rights to these, but we can use it in whatever we want. He figures that it would take anywhere from a day and a half per person. So, in other words, if we had 10 people, you're looking at 2 weeks at least that he would be here, that we would have to pay. We would have to pay a place to stay. And he said it doesn't have to be an expensive hotel. He said he's gone some places that residents would give him a place to stay. Now, I don't know.
I offered that. I will. That's serious.
Is that right? Yes. But you don't know this guy from a hole in the wall. So I guess he wants to know if we're interested, and he would do this. He said he wouldn't do it beyond June because he said when the tourist season picks up and whatever, he said that probably he wouldn't be doing this. Do we tell him before we know any more? Should he? Could we have him as online so that he could explain more to council? Because I'm probably not explaining exactly everything that he's going to do here because I didn't quite understand as well. He interviews, and it's to find, I guess, interested people that have
done
well in the community,
contributed
contributed. Exactly, that's what I was looking for. So, do we just tell this guy he can come and do that? I mean, I have absolutely no idea. Yeah, he's given us a few.
Well, I've called where in the Madly Nines where he did.
He did one in the Madly.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I talked to the clerk there,
Yeah, and he's done. He's from
Northern Ontario.
yeah, that's right. But he's French from Quebec.
No, he's a Frenchman from Ontario.
Oh, he's not from Quebec. Oh, okay. Because he didn't sound.
There's a lot of French-speaking people in Ontario.
Okay.
Northern Quebec,
Okay.
Northern Ontario, there's a lot of French-speaking people.
Okay. So I said, what about travel? He said, no. He said, I like to travel. He's retired. And he says, gives him a chance to just visit different areas. He's interested in the Atlantic provinces. And that's basically what he said. So I said I would bring it up here. I forgot to put it on the agenda, and I just thought of it now. So I figured I should at least say something, bring it up to see what council thinks.
Councillor Digdon.
What I made the offer, sincerity, really. If it's the will of council to have him come down and that,
He doesn't travel alone. He travels with his wife, as far as I know.
I thought you were going to say he's taking his whole family. I was gonna say,
And 4 dogs.
Houston, we have a problem. If him and his wife want to come home, we'll definitely put them up. We'll definitely feed them if that's the will of council. And I didn't run it by Jeanette yet, but I'm sure she'll
Is
go
she
along with
watching?
it. Oh my God. Yeah. So no, it's whatever you want.
He gives them a chance. He says, we like to travel.
Yeah.
It's a way to visit areas
Yeah.
and do something.
Usually we could, exchange money like for the food. It wouldn't cost a whole lot.
So what do I tell this?
Councillor D'Entremont.
I think it might be an opportunity to, just trying to think, to get the community involved and, kind of say, hey, we've got a guy here coming from Northern Ontario who wants to interview people, local characters, and that, we might be able to actually have people say, hey, we'll invite this guy home. He can come home for lunch. It might be a good way to promote his work and promote the municipality at the same time and our people. So.
Councillor Digdon?
Thank you. And that's exactly what I'm thinking about, honestly. We've got the 15th of August coming up. It's supposed to be a big day down here. And that Congra Madial coming up 2024. Councillor Bork said that this man did good work for the location he was in that she knows of and stuff like that. So if it's something that can help us out and sell our municipality, I'm all for it. And I will definitely give him a place to stay if he wants.
Okay. Warden Muse?
I'm going to forward an email that he sent, and he's got two videos of what he's done in different places, okay? So I will forward that to you guys so that you can have a look at it as well.
I think we should bring it down. We can work into logistics later. I mean, we can
Yeah.
offer rooms and meals all we want tonight, but I mean, we would work into logistics later.
Yeah.
I suggest that you talk to him and tell him.
Ask when he can come.
Yeah. Open invitation.
Oh, yeah.
Do we need a motion?
So the motion is to bring him in, and there's a bill, even if it comes from Councillor Dickon for recovery of food, which doesn't matter. If it comes, it doesn't matter, it then authorizes us to do that. So yes. Yeah.
Second.
Questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, good. Agenda topics for the next meeting, notice of motion by councillors. Okay, seeing nothing? Seeing nothing? We will go, was there anything in question period? Yes? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do have a question from the public, a good question, and it's more of a federal issue, but maybe somebody around the table may know the answer around do we know when the Tuscan Post Office will reopen? Anybody have an idea?
We received some notification that it would be from the time that the fire had begun, it could be up to 8 weeks. That's what we were told. I think that brings it to mid-June, I believe. Chantal, do you have something else?
So we received a letter from the post office the other day from Canada Post head office saying that they don't have a time limit. It's just temporarily shut down and all mail services are at the Arcadia Post Office. They don't have a date as of yet, but that's what I heard as well, up to 8 weeks. But this letter said there's no actual temporarily closed. There's no timeline at all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Councillor D'Entremont?
So I guess just to put me back up to speed, so you say there was a fire?
Yes.
Okay. So, so they haven't indicated when it's going to reopen, or I'm just thinking of a rural post office and maybe Canada's Post is opportunity to close it, right? And I'm sure the residents of Tuscott don't want it shut down, right? So we should probably be on top of this because I know I live next door to a post office. There's always rumors and rumblings about closing down rural post office. So I think we should just be a little, on the ball to make sure that that doesn't happen. So.
Thank you. Chantal?
I was just going to say that in response to that, Councillor D'Entremont, as far as I know, from conversations that I've had with the post office, there will be workers going in to work on this to rectify the issue, and I don't think that's a topic at the moment, but.
Okay. We have an in-camera item.
Motion to go in camera.
Thank you. Seconded by all those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion carried. Going in camera.